The Smashing Machine. Good morning and welcome to the press conference of Leonine Studios and A24 to the movie The Smashing Machine. The writer and director, Benny Safdie. Morning, Benny. The actress Emily Blunt, playing the girlfriend of Mark Kerr. Good morning, Emily. And the main character, Dwayne Johnson, playing Mark Kerr. Good morning and welcome to Berlin. So I give it a second that everyone is taking their seats. You can grab a drink, yes, get some water. Okay, so I think, let's get it rolling. So obviously, first of all, a very warm welcome to you. It's a huge pleasure to have all of you here in Berlin, and we're very excited to talk to you for the next 30 minutes about this very impressive, amazing movie. The most interesting is that it has already won a Silver Lion for Best Director at the Venice Film Festival. Congratulations. That is absolutely amazing. So let me start with a first question that I'm going to ask to all three of you. I read, Benny, that you got a shirt from your wife saying, "As real as it gets," and that this became kind of a mantra or a slogan for all of you producing this movie. So what did it mean to you with your directing the film, this sentence?
It's interesting, yeah, it was I think an early tagline for the UFC, and when I first met Dwayne, just when it was not the first time, but when we met up, I brought him a stack of VHS tapes of Mark Kerr. He had made these kind of testimonials of how to kind of wrestle and MMA, and so in addition to that, I had the shirt that said "As real as it gets," and it just meant everything about the movie had to be as real as possible, to the point where you almost couldn't discern what was real and what wasn't, and it would take on a whole new feeling, and that would be like an understanding of somebody's emotions and feelings, and that was inside the ring and outside the ring. Everything had to feel as real as possible because we really wanted to put you inside the brain of somebody else and feel their feelings.
So Emily, thank you. So Emily, how did you approach that, as real as it gets?
I mean, I think what was on display, even in Benny's script, when I read it, was this opportunity for a relationship that would be full of spontaneity, that wouldn't have to be tidy or palatable. And I think that was very exciting, you know, to get to be a part of a relationship that could be as volatile as it was loving. And at times, how they were with each other was sort of nonsensical. It was bonkers, you know, how they'd fluctuate between loving and volcanic. But I think that the toxicity of that relationship and of the deep love that happened sort of in parallel paths felt more true to relationships, and not all relationships, and theirs might be the amplified version of bad behavior that I think we've all got in us, you know? But I think that that was really exciting to me and challenging. And then on the day, the environment that Benny created, it was just one of such reality and spontaneity that it was very blurry, the line between reality and fiction. So the scenes would be terribly exciting, so exciting to work with DJ in that way. But they were also, the scenes would leave their fingerprints on you. It was hard to come down from some of those scenes.
Yeah, that absolutely, I can believe. Dwayne, what about you? It must have been hugely challenging for you, as real as it gets.
It was the most challenging journey or undertaking that I've had in my entire career. And I've been lucky, I've been really lucky over the years to have a pretty good career that I'm really grateful for, but the way in which Benny challenged me, and certainly in the way of which Emily challenged me, was unlike anything I had ever experienced, but I wanted it really badly. And I wanted to be challenged in that way, and I really wanted to challenge myself in that way. And as Emily was talking about, we wanted to show these many layers and, as she likes to say, full weather system of human beings. And in their relationship, I think this idea of as real as it gets, that's what we lived every day. So for example, the house that we lived in, Benny built that from scratch on a soundstage with immovable walls, full house, design, carpet, running water, lights, but he built it from scratch so he can hide the cameras. So whenever we went into these scenes, as you guys know, when you've seen the film, or if you haven't, if you're going to see it tonight, you'll see that, you know, when it's time to kick off and have these incredibly intense, raw fights as a couple, what we've all gone through and what we've all seen in life, it was real. And as Emily said, it left its fingerprints on you. That part was real, and then the fights outside of the ring were real-ish, you know, and but also inside the ring too as well. It was really important to Benny to create an environment where he had this rule: there was no cameras allowed in the ring, and if we were going to get as real as it gets, the cameras were going to be third and fourth seats back. We had to fight your way through the back of people's heads and the ropes and the apron and the turnbuckles. And then on top of that, Benny said to me, I would love to make this movie without ever cutting away from you, which, as you guys know, that means there's no stunt double. I had a stunt double, but for the most part, it was all me, which then meant I'm going to get my ass kicked in the movie, which I did happily. But so it was an incredible undertaking for me, and I feel for all of us too. And you see that when you see the film.
Absolutely. Thank you. So it's for you now to ask a couple of questions. We have microphones somewhere. Yeah. So we start in the front row here. Second row, please. Yeah. Can you please say your name and your outlet?
Hello, my name is Sebastian Hoffmann. I'm from Power Wrestling magazine.
Question for Emily.
Yes, yeah, of course, absolutely. Yes, just congrats, Mr. Safdie and Ms. Blunt, for your work on that movie. It's incredible. I saw it last week. Great work. So to get that. To get that. And now we, Mr. Johnson, of course. Oh, really? That was bad.
You did good.
You made it from being one of the greatest athletes to one of the biggest names in Hollywood a few years ago. Absolutely. But your performance in Smashing Machine was absolutely next level. With the help of the cast and Mr. Safdie, it was amazing to see your development in acting, for sure. And how much of your experience in wrestling played into your role? And what lesson or which moment of it would you name as the biggest? And I have to add one more. In entertainment and wrestling, all combined, you are the GOAT. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Thank you. That's very kind of you. Thank you. I think that there's a lot that I could attribute from wrestling to the role of Smashing Machine. One, you know, there's combat involved, and there's wrestling involved, but it's performative combat, obviously, in pro wrestling. But the suplexes are real, and there's a base that you learn in pro wrestling of an amateur style that helped me. But at the end of the day, MMA is a completely different monster than professional wrestling, and I've always known that. I've had tremendous respect for MMA and the community and all the fighters, the women, the men. So I knew going in, I really had to transform as best I could my body. Benny, in the beginning of our journey, said, I'm not too sure if you've ever heard this before, but I'm going to need you to get bigger. And he goes, you know, just puffier in a way.
Yeah, like do you work out?
Yes, yes, because you're going to need to, because this isn't working right now. But Mark Kerr was a big guy, and he was rare. He had a physical specimen. So I had to transform physically, but then also I took up a 12-week MMA training camp, which was really important. So to answer your question, I was able to attribute a few things from pro wrestling, but at the end of the day, the thing that drew me most to Mark Kerr was just not the wins or the losses or the fact that he was at one time the greatest fighter on the planet, incredibly decorated in college and in professional MMA. It wasn't that. It was just the pressure to win that drew me to his story and the ability or the inability to deal with that kind of pressure. We don't know what it's like to be the greatest fighter on the planet. That is just of rare air for certain individuals, but we all know what it's like to feel pressure to deliver every day, regardless of what it is we do. So that's what I was attracted to with the story, and I learned very quickly, almost like baptism by fire, just how incredibly difficult and hard that world is, MMA. Thank you, man.
Next question on the left.
Oh, my hands are shaking, oh my God. I'm Sherry from Kiss FM, and oh my God, I'm a little bit also emotional because I saw the movie 30 minutes ago.
Oh, wow.
And I tried to not cry in some of the scenes. And one question for Dwayne, how do you prepare your body and your mind for your role?
For this particular role, I knew that I was going to have to put on a lot of weight. I gained about 30 pounds, which is a lot of weight to carry. And the challenge of putting on 30 pounds to become Mark Kerr is that he had a different quality of muscle. And it's not like, hey, I can go to McDonald's and eat burgers and shakes for the next 5-6 weeks to gain weight. Like that, it was the kind of muscle you had to put on that there was like a fast twitch fiber, if that makes sense, to his muscles, because he was an amateur wrestler first, MMA. So there's a lot of fast twitch, I'll get it out, movements. And then, you realize that is hard to do because I still had to be active and move at the same time. So the transformation, that was challenging. And then the workouts had to change, the diet had to change. But then there was the voice transformation too as well. As you know, like Mark spoke very softly, so tender. He speaks from here up, not from the ground. You think he would speak from the ground like this, but he talks like this and very soft spoken. And then
4 hours in the makeup chair.
For 4 hours in the makeup chair.
And you were very antisocial in the makeup trailer.
Well, you know what? Well, what's interesting is
which is fine. It's fine. But we were at opposite ends of the trailer, and people are like, "You guys are such good friends." I was like, "No, we didn't really speak on this movie. It was a different level."
She was on that end. I was on this end.
But I think those 4 hours were really cool because it was sort of your time to get into this immersive zone.
Yes.
And I think your prosthetics makeup artist, Glenn, said you were the most patient actor he'd ever worked with.
Well,
which is pretty
look,
cool.
It's very cool. Yeah. Sitting in a makeup chair for 4 hours isn't fun, but what I realized is, oh, wow, I need this. So by the time I look up after 4 hours and I'm completely different, there's 21 prosthetics that are just very, it's very detailed and subtle. It's like a subtle 4 hours. And that helped me too, as well.
And they had to stay on in the most insane conditions, that we were really putting them through, and we didn't want to be precious about it because it had to be who you were, and that was, I think, the most important thing is that in that, I guess, process of getting all of these pieces on, you transformed,
Which helped.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's an emotional movie, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, at the bottom. Yeah.
Hello, hi. I'm Laura Schuster from RTL, and also I loved the movie. I also watched it just 30 minutes ago. It's very incredible. And I have to ask, because you just said, Emily, that you two are very close friends, and I mean, you worked together before, but I feel like this was a completely different dynamic. How did you get into this kind of couple thing? How did you get into it, and maybe did you learn another side of each other?
Interesting.
That's a good question. I think we both knew that we were going to have to really put our feet to the fire with this movie, with this type of movie, with these types of characters. I think there's an innate reservoir of trust and respect that we have for each other. I think on Jungle Cruise, we just endlessly gave each other shit and like spent most of that movie laughing. And actually, this was a completely different experience. It's not to say there wasn't joy on set, but it was a very focused, like immersive environment. And so I mean it. In the makeup trailer, we were not talking. And then you would shoot all day, sometimes till 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night. And some of the days would just level you completely. But it was so satisfying. And it was for me as his friend, who I think I know him pretty well, it was one of the more profound experiences, not just of my career, but of my life. Watching him completely disappear, the man who's sort of never allowed to and has never been able to. And I remember when you walked in the first time as Mark, I hope this doesn't sound strange, it was almost like you were so calm, and there was like this sense of relief that had come over you, that you could be elsewhere, be someone else completely, not have to live up to the infrastructure of this persona, the rock, the invincibility of that. It was so beautiful for me to watch it happen. And then to be on the receiving end of it. And it was helpful to me that he looked nothing like himself. So I think even in the midst of these eruptive, hazardous fights that they had, it was very transporting for me to be looking at someone I didn't recognize. Just say likewise.
Likewise.
Yeah.
The thing, just to add to that, I think what makes those fights that you guys have, I think, so impactful is you did have such a base of friendship and care, and those kind of fights are the worst when you know that the person is going to regret what they said 5 seconds after it comes out of their mouth. And that was very important, you know, was this feeling that you could tell these people wanted to be together and they just couldn't find something, you know, and that just that's a different, it hits at a different level. And I think, yeah, it was harder because you guys do have such a kind of care for one another and you want each other to win and succeed, and here you are going at it. And it was, yeah, there's that one fight towards the end where it was just like bang, 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 and you each were like it was just one after the other, one level higher. It was amazing to watch. So.
I will say that that something that I learned about Emily and about her force, I think, as an actor, also I think as a woman, in that there's, without spoiling it, but the fight that happens at the end, I think it's the one you're talking about, where it just escalates and escalates, and it gets very uncomfortable for the audience to watch it because you don't know what's going to happen. And you're hoping it doesn't go down a road that it looks like it's going to go down. Because there's a gun involved and things like that. What I learned is that when I had to hold her at the end and stop her from continuing to do what she was doing in this fight, and I grabbed her, and Benny, there's an openness to his performance that he would like on set. Some things are very specific, but for the most part, especially something like this, you go where it takes you. There's a freedom there. And his one request was, if you happen to wind up on the floor, that would be great. But if you don't, you take it where it goes. So eventually we wound up on the floor just like that, very quick, and I'm holding her. But in that moment, what I realized is, as I'm holding her, I feel the force of this woman who can act 100 feet tall when she wants to, and is such a powerful force as an actor, and giving me everything that she has as an actor. and squeezing every ounce of life out of this character in this moment. But also as a woman, I've never experienced, I've never held anyone in that way, where I have the hardest, tightest grip on this person with all my might. And the last place that this person wants to be is in my arms, and wants to break out and get out and potentially just not only get out, harm herself, harm me. It's on the edge. And in that moment, I realized, or afterwards, by the way, once we were recovering from the scene, I just realized what that must be like to hold someone against their will, and they don't want to be there, and they will do everything and anything to get out of your grip, to do things. So I learned that about her, just force as an actor, but also just as another human being whom I love and I care for deeply. It broke my heart to hold her like that and to feel that.
Yeah.
Right?
I think that's, the fact that you're doing something like that with that intention, that you're trying to save the other person, but that involves that kind of restraint and also physicality it's intense.
Mm-hmm.
So we did one take.
Yeah.
And that was it.
And it was just like,
Thank God.
it was there, and I just remember looking and just being like, well, that's it, I do know what that feels like, and it was just like, I don't want to feel that again. I know that you guys don't need to go through that again, So it was a wild thing to bear witness to.
Once that scene was over and we were recovering, like when we're on the floor, there's a great picture that our on-set photographer had snapped where we're probably 10, 15 minutes after the moment, after he said cut, and we didn't move. I still have my arms around her and we're crying and trying to recover, and Benny's exhausted, and it's a beautiful picture of just everyone exhausted. We didn't know it then until it was over, but Benny had shared with us what he shared with you just now, which is he knows this moment from experience, which then broke our heart even more.
Thank you very much for sharing this. Another question? Yes?
Hi guys, Brent with Lamp View. Benny, going back to what you said earlier about As Real as It Gets. So just before I saw the film, I went back and rewatched the 2002 documentary. And one thing that really struck me was, number one, there seem to be a number of shots in your film that are almost like exact recreations of the doc. And then two, for Dwayne, your ability to not just capture Mark's size and his voice, but also like his aura. Like Emily said earlier, you don't look like yourself, but you also don't feel like yourself in the film. So I just wanted you to get your perspective on both of those things.
Yeah. It's funny, there was one member that we were looking for a scooter that had the same name, and we really wanted to just kind of recreate some of these things, because I think there's something interesting when you try to recreate reality, you create something completely new and different. And in that process, something happens. And it's almost like you have the ability of hindsight, 2020. You can change things, you can deepen things, you can just get to another place. And I loved the images, and I loved the documentary, and I just felt, here's this real thing that exists. And it was almost like a test. Like, if we can make it feel and look as real as that real thing, then it just spoke to everything that was going on in the screen and everything that was happening with the production design, because you can see it. And it was like, can we actually measure up to the real world and the real thing? And it just meant that, yeah, we were trying to kind of weave that together. And there's just something, there's specifically with realism, like when you're looking at a movie and you're trying to tell a story, I think that you can lull the audience into a place of just really feeling like, oh, this only happened once. And that's it isn't true. You know, we did things multiple times. You get the ability to get the perfect take, the perfect way that the line is said. You can practice, you can get different angles, you have more abilities. But I wanted it to feel like that never happened. And we turned it on, and it happened right in front of us, and you get to see that too. So that's really where that came from. So thank you for that.
I think trying to find Mark's aura, that was, I think, the biggest challenge. It's one thing, I think, to physically transform, and that, and vocally, and you know, his abilities and his successes in the cage or the ring. Those were. I had a lot of people around me to help me. I had great MMA coaches. Mark Kerr was there helping me through. Of course, I had Benny, how we shot the fights. But it was really the emotional stuff, I think, that was the most challenging, because you have a guy who by appearance has it all together. He looks like $1 million, and he's capable, and he's the greatest on the planet. This guy got no worries, he's got no problems, but it's the opposite. And he was very flawed and struggling, and did a good job of hiding it. And it just reminded me and reminded us, and that, you know, Dawn is beautiful today, and she was beautiful back then. She was struggling too. They were flawed, and it was the great reminder, I think, for all of us that you never know what people are going through. You know, they could look one way, and you think, oh, that guy's got it together, or that girl's got it together. I wish I was more like that. In reality, you know, you pull back the layers, and they're flawed too, and challenged, and so that was the biggest part. And what allowed that to happen, I think, for Emily and I both, was spending a lot of time with Mark and Dawn, and being deeply curious, and then being, more importantly than our curiosity to play them, was their willingness to open up and say, yeah, we were, like, at that time, you know, messed up, and this was going on, and so.
Thank you. Last question
Thank you.
On the left here.
TV, you had Ryan Bader and Alexander Usyk on the movie as well, world champions in MMA and boxing. You work with Mark Kerr. So the question is a little bit split up for Benny and Emily. How was it to work with these guys when combat sports is a lot about work ethic and discipline? And the question would, go over to Dwayne Johnson. How was it for you to work with world champions in different sports, you being a world champion in pro wrestling and now working with world champions in MMA and boxing?
It was very important to have people from that world in the movie, because we really approached it with a level of love and respect and authenticity. We wanted people to watch these fights and really believe that they were happening, you know? And having Ryan there was just, it was almost like it was hard, because I knew that role really needed to be embodied by a real fighter, you know, just to bring something to the movie. And he had not acted before, you know, this was his first time, and Usyk as well, you know, and so and there's certain things that I knew that they could bring. Like, I could say to him, when you win and you get to that top, what are you thinking? Like, what next? Now what? And he's like, I have had that before, you know, where you work months and months and months for this one thing, and then after 5-10 minutes, it's gone. You know, that kind of mentality. And then what becomes difficult is trying to work that feeling into a performance. And I think it's really helpful, because again, you're putting on screen essentially these two things that have to be equal. Everything has to raise to that level, and it's a risk, you know. But I think if we can do it, it would be amazing, you know. And seeing Usyk in there, who's not an MMA fighter, he's a boxer. You know, again, it's bringing this idea and this lived-in experience into the movie. It all just kind of comes together into this kind of alchemy that you can't really explain. It just happens. So.
Thank you very much for being here with us, and we're very excited to see you tonight for the premiere.
Thank you for such great questions.
It's going to be fun, yeah. Thank you, guys.
Lots of success for you for this amazing movie.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Thanks, guys.